Dante, wait up! You gotta stay with me, boy. We don't know where...
So tell me about how long, the origins of this. How long was it in development at Pixar? And, you know, the whole idea of doing a movie centered around Dia de los Muertos.
The last thing that I directed was Toy Story 3 at the studio. And after I finished that, I had a few different ideas that I was kicking around, and one of them was the notion of telling a story set against the Mexican tradition of Dia de Muertos. I had always been interested in it as an outsider, mostly drawn to it through the folk art, and it wasn't until I started really learning about the traditions and ultimately, you know, heading down to Mexico and seeing it firsthand that I learned how central family really is to the celebration. It's a celebration that's not about death, it's about life. It's all about the obligation that we all have to remember our loved ones and to not let their memories die, to make sure that their stories are passed along to the next generation. And the more that I learned, the more that I realized that we had kind of all the ingredients that we needed to make the kind of movie that Pixar likes to make, which is a movie that is entertaining, is animation friendly, it's funny, but can also have very, very deep, real human emotion.
Building on the notion of family, there's a whole thing about photos, if you could expound on that, in the movie, and having a relative's photo and making sure that it's up.
Yeah, well, for people who don't know about Dia de Muertos, during the celebration, which is November 1st and 2nd, people build they're like altars, they're called ofrendas, and they'll put photos of their loved ones on the ofrenda along with things that their loved ones loved in life. You know, it might be a 2-liter bottle of Coke, you know, it could be a bottle of whiskey, donuts, I mean, whatever it is, those will be on the ofrenda. And we kind of embraced that idea in our movie. It's a fantasy, and our main character, Miguel, he ends up, through a series of kind of strange events, he ends up switching over to the other side. He ends up going to the land of the dead on Dia de Muertos. And we have this whole notion that for the dead to be able to come back and visit the living every year, they need family members to have put a photo on the ofrenda for them. It becomes like their ticket home, and that becomes a really central idea in the story.
Now, this is a musical, wall to wall. You've got songs from the Frozen songwriters. Michael Giacchino, Oscar winner Michael Giacchino, he's doing a completely traditional Mexican music score. It's wall to wall music. Talk about that. What, you know, making it a musical.
Yeah, well, from the very beginning, I wanted to make a movie that really embraced music, and we kicked around different approaches to it. And ultimately, I ended up wanting to make a film that, in my mind, the model that I had was Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?, where you have a movie that really embraces music. There's lots of performance of music. It's not a traditional breakout into song musical, but it's just music is in its DNA, and like in the case of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?, where they were dealing with Americana, you know, just one very specific genre of music, that we would make a film that would really embrace all the different kinds of great music that comes out of Mexico, because everyone knows mariachi, and that is one part of Mexican music that's awesome, but there's so much more, and we tried to really embrace music as much as we could.